Okay, this is the Pearl Chapter 5 Annotation Guide. So, what's occurring here is that Juana is trying to escape with the pearl, or trying to throw it in the ocean more specifically. And here we see the burgeoning power of evil within Kino. So, rage surged in Kino, which is page 59. Her arm was up to throw when he leaped at her and caught her arm and wrenched the pearl from her. He struck her in the face with his clenched fist and she fell among the boulders, and he kicked her in the side. So he's being very violent. He's basically beating his wife here, and that's obviously an example of the evil that we have been noticing in Kino emerging slowly as the pearl becomes more a part of his being and who he is. So we've got Kino looked down at her and his teeth were bared. He hissed at her like a snake, and Juana stared at him with wide, unfrightened eyes like a sheep before the butcher. So those are two similes. Two different similes to describe the animal nature of the two. So from now on, pretty much we'll be hearing a lot of animal similes and animal metaphors. And so these are just forms of nature imagery, where he's comparing humans to animals or humans to natural things like plants. And then we've even got here a little bit of agency. And then the rage left him and a sick disgust took its place. So his animal nature is paused, I guess, or it stops, and then he realises that what he's been doing has been his actual doing all along. So then we've got a really long extended section about what it is to be a man, and I think in chapter 4 we picked up the motif of manliness or manhood or being the man. And so this is actually an extended metaphor of what it means to be a man. So he's telling us that a man will basically kill himself in search of his pride. He'll continue onwards forever, even to the detriment of himself and his own family. And then top of 61 we've got sometimes the quality of woman, the reason, the caution, the sense of preservation could cut through Kino's madness and save them all. So she decides to stay with him, or stick with him rather, even though he's beaten her and really injured her, because she believes that through her agency, through her decisions, through her advice, through her guidance, that she might perhaps be able to keep him alive and make things work out okay. And then I've got here dark and light. So this is when Kino kills a man, and we see this now from Juana's perspective. So she sank to her knees and picked it up, and the moon went into the darkness of the clouds again. So we call this a juxtaposition, which is when we're contrasting two things. Not surprisingly, the dark represents evil. So when she picks up the pearl, it goes dark. And then when the light comes back, she sees that there are two dark figures lying on the path ahead of her. And we know that one of them is Kino, and the other one is the man that Kino has killed very recently. So we've also got evil there. And then a little bit of greed down the bottom. All of the time, Juana had been trying to rescue something of the old piece of the time before the pearl. So she wants to go back to a time before all the greed subsumed and took over their life. And then there was nothing to do but to save themselves. So again, that's agency. She's convinced that she's the solution to the problem that they're facing, that she has the power to get them out. So a mixture of greed. She realises she can't go backwards, but instead she must go forward. Flipping over, 62. So again, here we see a different version of man, a much weaker and much more helpless man. So Juana quieted him as she would a sick child. So she sort of says hush and talks about the pearl and brings him more or less back to life, tells him what he needs to do. No, he said, you are right, and his will hardened and he was a man again. So we've got non-manliness there, and then returning to manhood here. And on the bottom of 63, the canoe of his grandfather plastered over and over, and a splintered hole broken in it. This was an evil beyond thinking. So this might look like the nature example, but what we actually have instead is a mixture of evil and a reference to the motif of the canoe. So evilness and and then the canoe. And then as a continuation on the top of 64, we've got an extended metaphor that describes the canoe. So it says, the killing of a man was not so evil as the killing of a boat, for a boat does not have sons, and a boat cannot protect itself, and a wounded boat does not heal. So that's quite a strange extended metaphor really, but it's showing that to Kino and to his people, a boat is much more important than a human's life, because a boat survives beyond ancestors, beyond generations, and it can give life to people almost forever. Then in this little section, we've got an interesting combination of items. We've got Kino grasping at his pearl and also his dagger, so the two go together now. They're sort of intertwined like the Song of Evil and the Song of the Pearl. He has a pearl, therefore he has to defend it, which means he has to be violent, which means he has to use his knife. And then on top of 65, this is where their hut is burnt down, or it's caught alight, it's on fire. She said, who burnt the house? He said, I don't know, the dark ones, which could be also a reference to colonialism, I guess. Might be overthinking that a little bit, I guess, but he could be either referring to the darker skinned Mexican people, or he could be referring to an embodiment of evil, whatever you think really. Flipping over, 66. It is the pearl, said Juan Tomas. There is a devil in this pearl, you should have sold it and passed on the devil. Perhaps you can still sell it and buy peace for yourself. So Juan Tomas is obviously a lot more religious, a lot more Catholic or Christian, we could say. And so he sees it as a much clearer cut thing, and we're going to put that as a mixture of evil and also colonial oppression, because we can see that Juan Tomas is representative of the colonial views that have been pushed onto him by the Spanish colonialists. We've got a little bit of family here because Juan Tomas is his brother and he's looking after him. And when Kino saw this knife, his eyes lighted up and he fondled the blade and his thumb tested the edge. So he's got a new knife, a bigger knife, and that's good to him. And we can see a mixture here of evil and agency. So I'm going to do it in a bit of both of these colours, just to give the impression that Kino is, at this point, he's a little more than an animal. He's seeing ways to defend himself rather than anything more complicated than that. Bottom of page 68. This pearl has become my soul, said Kino. If I give it up, I shall lose my soul. Go thou also with God. So he's saying that basically he's taken on a different religion, which is the one given to him by his colonial oppressors, and he's done that basically because that's a good way to conceive of himself as becoming one with this thing. The people often speak of their many gods and the singular God of Catholicism, and so we realise now that he's by becoming more evil, he's also becoming more Catholic. He's showing himself as being taken over by a devil rather than being his own sort of thing.